Today's daf Be'ez Hashem is Masechta Zevachim Daf Kuf Gimel. We're going to begin from the Mishnah on Daf Kuf Gimel Amud Aleph. The Mishnah begins Kol Shaloi Zacha. Kol Shaloi Zacha HaMizbeach Bifsara. So the Mishnah begins that as long as the Mizbeach did not merit to get the meat of a carbon, Lo Yizachol Kahanim Be'oira. So the Kahanim did not merit to get the skin of the carbon. For example, let us say that a psul happened to this carbon before this rika. For example, they shechted a carbon oila. Now, normally, if you followed through on an oila, the skins would belong to the kahanim. However, if the carbon became pasul, like say right after they shechted, they took the cup of blood and they walked it out of the Beis Hamikdash, or it became tamei. So then the skin of the animal does not go to the kahana because the mizbeach didn't get its share, so the kahanim are not going to get their share of the oilam. Shnema, because it says, or oilas ish, or oila shehekiv lakoyin lo yiyeh. So the oila of a person, the skin of that animal belongs to the kohen. So that's what the Torah emphasizes, ish. It has to be of a man. Oila sha'ol ish. If it was satisfied the owner, then the kahanim get the skins. If it doesn't satisfy the owner, then the kahanim will not get the skin of that carbon oila. Next says the Mishnah next. Oila shenishchata shaloi lishma. An oila that was slaughtered shaloi lishma. Now here we know that the carbon, if you shech the carbon oila for a shlomim, thinking that it's a shlomim, you have to follow through as an oila and bring the animal, the entire animal, onto the mizbeach. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, but nevertheless, alfal pishlei also the bailim, even though the owner of this animal, of this oila, will have to bring another carbon, but it's still a kosher carbon. So then, oila the kahanim merit to get the skins of the animal. Now the Mishnah says, although it says in the pasuk oilas ish, the oila belonging for a man, the skins belong to the kahanim. Echad oilas ish, it doesn't matter if it's a oila belonging to a man, a male, the echad oilas isha, or the oila belonging to a female, oiresayam la kahanim, the skins belong to the kahanim. Doesn't matter who the owner of the carbon is, what the gender is. Says the Mishnah, oires kochi kalim labalim. The skin of kochi kalim, let's say a shlomim. So if a person brings a shlomim, so then the skins of that animal belong to the owner. Oires kochi kachim lekahanim. But if it's a chatos and osham, it belongs to a kohen. The skins belong to a kohen. So kal v'choymer, and now kal v'choymer. And how do I know a carbon chatas, the skin of the animal, belongs to a kohen? So the answer is ma im oila shaloi zach b'vsara zach b'oira. And carbon oila, the kahanim did not get merit the flesh. The flesh of the animal, the meat of the animal, goes on to the mizbeach. Nevertheless, the Torah gave you the skins of the animal belong to the kohen. Kachi machatas v'nasham. Shizachal b'vsara, that the kohen does eat the meat of the animal. Einidin, certainly she is kabari, he should also get the skins. You're going to tell me that this is not a good kal v'chomer, because the mizbeach eats the meat and does not get the skins. So maybe I'll tell you by chatas and ashram, the Torah says that the kohen eats the meat but does not eat the skins. So the Mishnah answers a self-asked question. Don't prove me from the mizbeach. The mizbeach never gets the skin. So that's not a proof. But here, if you're telling me that the kohen will get the skins, although it doesn't get the meat, so certainly when it gets the meat, by a katas, it will get the skins also. So it's a good kal v'chaim. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, oilus ish, prat oilus hegdish, divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Yehuda said, it says the oila belonging to a man, then the kohen gets the skins. So that excludes the oila, a holy oila. What does that mean? Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda in a prat oilus gemer. it excludes the oila belonging to a ger. So Rabbi Yehuda needs explanation, and Rabbi Yehuda needs explanation. So the Gemara explains Rabbi Yehuda first. My prat loilas hegdish. What does it mean to exclude the oila of hegdish? That the oila belonging to hegdish does not go to the kahana. Let's say it excludes the carbon oilers that came from the surplus. What happens? How does a person have a surplus? Let's say you have a person who's chayv a carbon osham, and all of a sudden he lost that carbon osham. It was a male animal, he lost it, he brought a replacement and then found the first one. So what he does with the one that he just found, he makes sure that it gets a mum, sells it, and the money he drops into the pushka, into the special pushka, into the base of Mikdash, and from them they buy karbonos oilas tzibur. It's called oilas kayetz mizbeach. When there's nothing to do on the mizbeach, it's a quiet day. They would bring a carbon oila from that pushka. So therefore, since that carbon oil is brought on behalf of not of an individual, but of the tzibur, so then the skins do not belong to the kohen, it probably belongs to the Beis HaMikdash itself. And the skins will be sold by the Beis HaMikdash and used for upkeep. Says the Gemara, that would be very good. According to the opinion, it says the X surplus goes to the Nidvis Tzibur. But according to the opinion that says the extras of a carbon asham and the money is not put in a pushka, the owner himself, the one who had to bring that asham and found a replacement, he brings a carbon oila from that money, from the extra carbon, and he brings the nesachim and that go along with that carbon oila. So it's his carbon oila, and therefore it belongs to him, and therefore the Kahanim should get it. And says the Gemara, even that, Mal Yamar will hold the Kahanim don't get it. When does the Chumash say that a Kohen gets the skins of an animal, of a carbon oila, only if that was the original carbon oila? But if it's the derivative of another carbon, such that this money for this carbon oil came from a surplus of a carbon asham, then we will not say that the kohen gets the skin of the animal. It's only ha'oila, the first oila that comes from the carbon, the first oila from an animal. If that's the first oila, yes, then you get the kohen gets the skin. But if it's a derivative, so then he will not get the skin because ha'oila means the first. Rav Aiba Rav Yanai, he has another interpretation of prat la'oilas hegdish. When this hegdish bring a carbon oila, prat l'matvis oila lebed the kabayis. A person, he donated an oila for the upkeep of the Beis HaMikdash. He didn't make it that it's his carbon. He said, I'm donating it for the Beis HaMikdash. It should be like the rabbi's kiddush or something like that. So it's the Beis HaMikdash's carbon oil. That it could work. If it's a machlokes, whether you could do something like that, but everybody would agree that the skin really belongs to the bedek kabayis. So if they brought this carbon oil, so they would the skin will belong to the upkeep of the Beis HaMikdash, and they will sell it and use that. It doesn't belong to us, to the family of Kahanim. Kain Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav Babur. Rav Nachman Rav Babur like the first interpretation. Prat la'oila ba min hamaysarais. The oila coming from the surplus of an asham. Amalei Rav Nachman. Come on, Rav Yehuda. You will say that you're going according to Rav Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda did not retracted his statement. The Tanya we learned in the Brayso, Shishal and Dava, there were six pushkas that were donations. La'oila Abamin Israel, Shloi Yakanim Zakarim Ba'oyer, the Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda first initially said that if you have surplus from a carbon asham, let's say, then the kohen will not merit in that skins. That's what Rabbi Yehuda said. Omar Reb Nechemia, V'amar Reb Shimon came bitalta midrash asher Yehoyada ben Kohen. We have a drash from Yehoyada HaKohen, and he taught us that it does belong to any oila that's brought in the base of Mikdash. The skins belong to the Kohen. That even if it comes from a surplus of an Osham, the Tanya we learned in the Braisha, Zeh Medrash Darash Yehoyada HaKohen, somebody from Tanakh named Yehoyada HaKohen, he made a drasha. Ashim hu, Asham, Asham Lashem. Anything. Kol Shabam Mishum Chatam Shum Asham, any animal, any carbon oil that's a derivative from a chatas or an Asham, Yilachach Bam oilis, you buy an oila, Abasa Lashem, the basa gets burnt on the Mizbeach, Oira Lakahanim, and the skins belong to the Kanim. So he had a special drasha. And Rabbi Yehuda did not defend himself. So we see that Rabbi Yehuda himself retracted from that statement that an oila that's a derivative from an asham, the skins will belong to the kohen. The skins will not belong to the kohen. He says it will belong to the kohen. So then we get back to the question: is there another interpretation of oilus ish prat oilus hegdish? You can't say that it excludes the oila of a derivative of an asham does not belong to a kohen, because the reality is that it does belong to a kohen. So, Ella, b'may moikim law. So, Amalei b'may moikim law. So the so Rav Nachman asked Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Nachman asked Rav Nuna. Then, what do you interpret that? What is Rabbi Yehuda excluding? Amalei makalina law. We interpret it to a situation like this. The Magdish Nechasa, someone donated all his possessions. Look to Rabbi Yeshua. Now we learned to the Mishnah, somebody donated, he made a blanket donation to the base of Mikdash. He had like sheep and goats in his possessions. So basically, the animals are sold to somebody who needs a carbon oila. The female animals will be sold to somebody who needs a carbon shlamim, and the money that for that sale will be used for the upkeep of the base of English. Yeshua says no. When a person donates everything to the base of Mikdash, he means that if he's donating animals, it should be brought as a carbon. So zecharim, if you find male animals, atzman, yikavum oilus, nekavis, and female animals, yimakul sarche shlamim, the yavi b'demeim oilus, because then you bring that the female animals. Well, it's not his, so there's no owner, so they sell it for the shlamim for somebody who needs a shlamim, and they use the money to buy more carbon oilus. The rest of the possessions, let's say his car or everything like that, so those oilers that are brought from somebody who made a blanket donation to the Beis Hamikdash, right? Those carbon oilers, the meat, the skins revert back to not the kohen, the kahanim of that mishmar, but the skins will be used, given to the base of Mikdash. Afil Reb Shua da Ama Adam Choyle B'Kdeishai Haini Milibasar Aval Or Taifus Ein Economic. Even Rabbi Yeshua is saying, if you look at Rabbi Yeshua, he's saying a person divided up his assets, and basically he's saying the animal should be brought as carbon oilers. But since it was a blanket donation, he meant to say is that the meat, yes, should be brought as a carbon oila. The skins of the animal should not be given to the kohen, but actually should be going towards bedek habayis. So that's an interpretation. Basically, prat la'oilus hegdish ni Rabbi Yehuda is one interpretation that we're going to go with. That the skin of a regular donation of a carbon oila, the skins belong to the kohen. But if somehow it's bedek habayis bringing the carbon oila because a person donated a bedek habayis carbon, so then those skins do not belong to the kohen, but actually belong to the bedek habayis. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda oime prat la'oilas gerim. A ger, skins of his animal, do not belong to the kohen. The ger donates the carbon oil, the skin does not belong to the kohen. How can we exclude an ger? It says oil ish. Any person bringing a carbon oil, the skins belong to the kohen. So he said, Prat ger shemeis ve'in yarshin. We're talking about ger that died. And we're bringing the expo after he passed away. We're bringing this carbon oil on his behalf. So then the skins do not belong to the kohen. Probably it belongs to Beis Hamikdash. Tanarabana oilas ish ainli elo oilas ish oilas ger nashim avodim minayin, and the oil of a ger who's alive, a woman, a slave. If they bring a carbon oil, how do you know the skins belong to the kohen? Talmud loyma oyer ha'oila, the or of any oila riba. Any person who brings an oila, the skins belong to the kohen. In kema Talmud loyma oila ish, oila also ish. Only an oila that was successful for the owner. Prat, this excludes if the carbon was shechted and it was made pigel, so it never had a moment that it was kosher. Shaloyi as a kahanim was a kohen ba'ara. The kahanim will not merit to get the skins because they puzzle the animal. Yochol, I might think shani. I'm going to also exclude nishchet shloi lishma. However, like also lebailem loyi as a kahanim as a kohen ba'ara. We got on the base. I would think that if the carbon was shechted shloi lishma, the kahanim will not merit to get the skins, despite the fact that it's a kosher carbon. But the owner still has to bring a new carbon. No matter, the skin always belongs to the kohen. And here's the exception: if it's still a kosher carbon, so then if it's still a kosher carbon, then the kohen will still get the skins, despite the fact that the bailam were not yotzel. I only know a carbon oila. How do I know a regular kachikachim belong a chatas and an osham? The skins belong to the kohen. Asher hikriv. Any asher hikriv is marba even chatas and osham. Yochel shani marba af kachim kalam. Maybe a shlomim, the skin of carbon shlomim should belong to the kohen. Tamad loima oila. Ma oila kachikachim, af kol kachikachim. Only things that are kachikachim, the skins belong to the kohen. Shmuel loima oira oila, eini oila ha oila. Oira is kachikachim and ayin. So how do we know kachikachim? So the Tanakama had the pasuk. How do you know of chatas and asham? So the Tanakama used the pasuk of asher hikriv, right? That's how you know chatas and asham. But the Rabbi Shmuel is going to have a kal v'chayim to teach you chatas and asham. Ma oila shalei zacha b'sara zacha ba'ira hachikachim shezacha b'saram ein edin shezacha ba'ira. So kal v'chayim ma dechan oila that you didn't get the basar, they can't get the skin. So kachikachim that they're eating the meat ein edin shezacha ba'ira. They certainly get the skins. You're going to say Mizbeach. Mizbeach gets the meat, but not the skins. Mizbeach here, we're going to say, like we said in the Mishnah, Ma Mizbeach shekein lezach b'mitzvahs, tamakahanim shezach b'mitzvahs, lezach b'mitzvahs, zach b'chula. Mizbeach never gets the skins. So therefore, if it gets the meat, it doesn't get the skin, it's understandable. But a kohen, he gets the skin by an oila, and if he's getting the meat by a chatos, he certainly should get the. Or if he's getting the skin by a oila, then he certainly should get the skin, and he's getting the meat by a chatas, he certainly should also get the skin. Rabbi says, "Kol the whole chiddush of the pasuk is to teach you that the skin of an oila belonged to the kohen. Everything else is simple. Of course, the skins belong to the kohen, because if you're telling me by a chatas and an osham that the kohen eats the meat, who eats meat without the skin? Wherever you find in the Chumash about carbon, the skin is always attached to the meat. That when they burn the certain parim that are burnt and the seirim that are burnt, So like Sierra Paran or Parakoyan. So both the skin and the meat are burned. So they go together. Chatas v'asham, v'zivchei sham mitzivzim, atol l'kayim. So the chatas and asham and the shalmei tziburs are gifts to the kayin. So they're getting the meat plus the skin. Ratzu mafshit and oisem, l'ratzu oisem, l'ratzu oichel and oisem agabe oirim. If they don't want to eat it, then they could separate the skin. But really, we gift to them like a full gift with the wrapping, which is with the skin. So of course, a chatas and asham, the kohen will get the skin. But kachikalam labaila. Ratsu mafshita noisa. Ratsu oishlan al gav oirim. When you give, let's say, a shlomen, the owner gets the meat. So if he wants the skin to take off the skin, he could take off the skin, or he can eat it together with the skin. It doesn't matter. So certainly the skin and the meat are always attached. Aval oila, by a carbon oil, it's unique because the meat is told, the Torah tells you to separate the skin from the meat. So I would think, because the Torah tells you separate the skin from the meat, I would think the Kayan does not get the skin. That's why only by the oila the Torah had to tell you that the Kohen gets the skin. Only by the carbon oila does the Kohen get the skin. Now, loyia, what is loyia? It belongs to the Kohen. Prat Yoim and an oinim do not get the skin, they don't get a part of that distribution. Sheyochol leyiska b'basa shuhu b'achila yiska b'ar sheina b'achila tamad loima loyia prat l'mekusa kipurim tul yoim b'oinim. Because I would have thought that the only they don't get meat because that's food, but they should get the skin that's not meant for food. So therefore, we say loyia, it belongs to a kosher kohen. Prat and they don't get part of that or it's not distributed to them. The top in Kama, so Tanakama had a pasuk to teach you that Asher Hikriv teaches you that also by Chatas and Osham, the kohen gets the skin. Typically, Medina, why don't the Tanakama learn from the Kal V'chomer? In fact, our Mishnah brought that Kal V'chomer. Answers the Gemara. Sometimes the Chumash, yes, it's indeed a Kal V'chomer, and you could learn from a Kal V'chomer. The Torah wants to solidify it as something unquestionable, so the Torah wrote it out that even by a Chatas and Aksham, there's an extra riboy. They teach you that the skins belong to the Kohen. Rabbi Shmuel Asher Hikriv my Avalei. Since Rabbi Shmuel uses the Kal V'chomer, so what does he use with Asher Hikriv? That excludes it full yom because they're not kosher to be macro, so they don't get the skins. Oh, the typically loyia. So why don't they use the loyia like Rebbe used loyia to exclude full yom kupurim ba'oinim? Shmuel to made. Rabbi Yachim Shmuel. He needs the loyia for another reason. Nema boy loyia. Nema bashim loyia. Just like the Osham, when we say that the kohen gets the meat of a korban Osham to eat, the bones, he can do whatever he wants with it. He can use it as make a vessel out of it because it doesn't have the kedusha. So also the bones of a korban oilatz moisav mutarim, the bones are permitted. And mufni, this is extra, this is open. The Eloi mufni, because if loyia is not extra, equal mifrach, I could add, if it wasn't a clear cut gzeir shava, I would ask a question. Ma'ala oshem shekim sari muta. Since the meat of a korban oshem is muta, so then the bones are muta. But an oila, you're putting the meat on the mizbeach. So I would think maybe the bones have some kedusha to it. Loyia kroyiseru, it's extra pasuk to teach you that it's open and therefore the bones have been mutter. One more Mishnah. The Mishnah says, "Kol hakachin sheyu behem psul koidim lehav sheit zesrain ein arasan lekahana." If the psul of the korban happened, let's see, if the psul of the korban happened before you skinned it, let's say the let us say a tumah fell on the meat, right? So then, what happens if tumah fell on the meat? So ein saying the kahanim. You don't give the skins to the kohen. Let's say you shechted a carbon oil, you have the meat in the skin, and a sheretz fell onto the meat. So you're not going to put the meat onto the mizbeach. So then, since the skin is still attached to the meat, the skin will not belong to the kahanim. The achar shaitan, but if you separated it, and then let's say the psul happened that sheretz fell on the meat, but it's separate already from the or, then or is saying the kahanim, you give the skin to the kahanim. I never saw a skin of an animal that will go to the base of Sreifa. They always gave it to the Kohen. And Rabbi Yomi, he was just bringing support that if it was after they skinned the animal, they automatically gave the skin to the Kohen. And Rabbi Chanina worked in the base of Migdash, so he said over a testimony like that. Rabbi Akiva, Midvarav Lamanda from Rabbi Chanina, we could learn Shamashir as a Bechor and a Treifa. If someone already skinned an animal, and we found out that he's a treifer, the animal was a treifer. Now you can't bring it onto the mizbeach, but it was already, the skin is separate from the bechor. The kohen can eat the skin of the animal. Now, because this psul, we finding out the psul already after you skin the animal. The Chachamim say that's not true. This is a psul that you would actually burn the skin. Why? Because when you find out that something was treif, turns out it shouldn't have been slaughtered in the first place. And therefore, it's a psul that happened before you skinned the animal, and would not give it to the kahanim. Kahanim said, I never saw a skinned animal, not given to a kohen. It could be because he never saw such a situation where they shechted an animal and they found out it was a treifa. But had he seen that they shechted an animal, found out it's a treifa after they skinned the animal, he may have seen that they're actually burning the skin because this type of psul happened before they even slaughtered the animal. It's just they didn't know about it. Okay, so this ends the Mishnah on Daf Kuf Gimel on the case.